Good morning. General questions. Question number 1, Patricia Ferguson.
To ask the Government whether it will provide an update on the meeting of the Remploy Stakeholder Group of the 19th of September 2012.
Minister Fergus Ewing.
Presiding Officer, due to parliamentary business, this was a short meeting of the Remploy Stakeholder Group. However, we discussed the announcement of the closure of Aberdeen and Edinburgh sites, with concern raised about the delay to the announcement on the Springburn site. I have raised these concerns with Esther McVey, the recently appointed Minister for Disabled People in the UK Government. Ms McVey has agreed to meet with MSPs on the 22nd of October, and I hope all MSPs who have raised concerns with me in recent months will attend this meeting.
Patricia Ferguson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I'm grateful to the Minister for that answer and for the work that he has been doing in this regard. As he will be aware, the long-awaited decision about the Springburn factory, which we had expected from the UK Government, has not materialised, and workers now face a further delay as they await to hear their fate. I would ask the Minister if the Scottish Government could consider 2 important facts in relation to Springburn. Firstly, that the factory constructs and adapts wheelchairs, and secondly, that there is currently a backlog of NHS patients waiting for delivery of a wheelchair or for essential maintenance. Even at this late stage, could the Scottish Government consider the possibility of acquiring Springburn Remploy as part of the NHS family, providing a secure future for dedicated workers and a ready supply of wheelchairs for those who need them?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, I recognise the great interest that Patricia Ferguson has taken in this matter and pursued it in this chamber and in Parliament. I also recognise the similar appropriate actions by MSPs in many other parties. This is an extremely serious matter, as Patricia Ferguson has said. Yes, I will take fully into account all practical suggestions of the sort that Patricia Ferguson has made. I would point out to members, however, that legal responsibility for conduct of the disposal of Remploy factories does not rest with me. It does rest with the UK Government. This morning I have spoken with Esther McVey, the successor to Maria Miller. We are straining every sinew to ensure that there is a future for the Remploy workers in Springburn. I believe that there should be a future for the work done there to be carried on, and to be carried on in a financially viable way. For those reasons, I am grateful for the support of members in all parties who can work constructively towards securing that end, albeit that, unfortunately, we do not have the powers that we wish to take charge of this matter ourselves.
Claire Adamson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Minister will be aware that Netherton Factory in Central Region was given a reprieve in 2007 when it was originally earmarked for closure by the Labour Government. It's now marked for closure with a loss of 24 jobs, 20 of whom are disabled workers. Given the most recent figures show that North Lanarkshire has an unemployment rate above the national average, and Job Centre Plus reports 14 people are chasing every vacancy in the area, what support can the Government give to those who are facing unemployment following the closure of this factory?
Minister.
I recognise Claire Adamson's concern and work that she has done. PACE is now delivering support to the ex-employees with personal caseworkers who are assessing their needs and developing specialist tailored support to help them in their search for work. I am also currently considering, Presiding Officer, whether any other support can be offered. I remain hopeful that those who wish to find new employment will be able to do so. I would also say that it is my wish, subject to permission from the relevant authorities, that this Parliament should have a debate on all of the matters in relation to Remploy. That debate, I think, should best take place after Esther McVey has visited this Parliament and met with all MSPs on the 22nd of October. I think that would be a right way, Presiding Officer, to allow all the many points in this matter to be properly aired and considered in this Parliament.
Question number 2, Richard Baker has not lodged it. Mr Baker has provided the Presiding Officers with no explanation. Question number 3, Patrick Harvey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government, in light of its policy on nuclear weapons, whether it will participate in the Spring 2013 conference in Norway on the humanitarian consequences of these.
Minister Keith Brown.
The Scottish Government is firmly opposed to the possession and threat of nuclear weapons. We are in contact with the Norwegian authorities to secure further information on this conference.
Patrick Harvey.
Thank you. I'm glad the question was asked by one of the 4 members of the Scottish Government who are also members of the Parliamentary Network on Nuclear Non-Proliferation and Disarmament. Can I ask the Minister to agree with me that the humanitarian consequences of nuclear weapons would be exactly the same whether they're based at Faslane, Milford Haven or wherever? Will the Scottish Government therefore join with the international campaign for the abolition of nuclear weapons in proposing a global treaty for their eradication? If we did that, then perhaps his party wouldn't need to bother debating whether to join a nuclear alliance or not.
Minister Keith Brown.
Perhaps the member would want to spend more time paying attention to his own party rather than my party. It might be in his interest. But I can say from the point of view of the Scottish Government, which is what I'm here to answer for, is that we do note the role that the humanitarian law has played in the banning of landmines, for example, and cluster munitions. And we also believe that it's right to focus attention on the devastating consequences, as Patrick Harvie mentions, of nuclear weapons. And can I say that we support the work of the Norwegian Government and others in seeking to build the political support that's needed to secure binding treaties on the reduction and the ultimate withdrawal of nuclear weapons.
Question number 4, Mary Fee.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it plans to introduce rail links to towns in the west of Scotland that currently have none.
Minister Keith Brown.
At present, we have no plans to introduce new rail links in the west of Scotland. However, we have announced the £30 million Scottish Stations Investment Fund and will consider any proposals which are affordable and demonstrate value for money.
Mary Fee.
I thank the Minister for his answer. The local government minister believes there should be a rail link to Renfrew. Does the Minister agree with this, and will he guarantee the funding for it?
Minister.
Can I say, first of all, that I understand that the local government minister, as local MSP, is meeting with his local council to discuss this very issue, which is, I think shows ambition on both sides. And can I say that the process by which people can access these funds under the Station Investment Funds has been laid out, albeit that it starts in 2014. So if the local council and the local regional transport partnership care to work together, go through the process of providing the appropriate analysis as to whether bus or rail or other forms of transport are ideal, then of course they can make a bid to that Scottish Stations Investment Fund, which will be considered in due course.
Fiona MacLeod.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I wonder if I could ask the Minister if he could perhaps describe the process where local campaigners, such as in my constituency looking for rail halts at Woodley, Woodhill and the Allender, what the process is for them inputting their thoughts on this to the bid process.
Minister.
Can I say that the process obviously starts, or the Station Investments Fund will start in April 2014, but before that time, what I'd recommend that local campaigners do is work with their local authorities, also with regional transport partnerships, and also in some cases with developers, because we have said that the £30 million which is there can best be used by spreading it across as many stations as possible. And if we can access money from local regional transport partnerships who are very keen to have a station, or in 2 cases at least that I'm aware of where the station could be built entirely from developers' contributions, then of course that makes more sense. So I think the appropriate thing to do at this stage is to make sure that campaigners engage both with their local authority and the regional transport partnership.
Question number 5, Rob Gibson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether marine and onshore energy producers in Scotland will have equitable access charges to the UK grid.
Minister Fergus Ewing.
We welcome progress now being made to reduce the scale of charges faced by mainland generators in Scotland, but we still face a fundamental problem for Scotland's islands, and we continue to press the UK Government for a solution. As the First Minister highlighted at question time last week, we have proposed to the UK Government a cross-government group with both Scottish and UK Government and the 3 island councils to work to assess and resolve the issue of island charging and to help unlock the massive renewables potential from the Northern and Western Isles and the seas that surround them.
Rob Gibson.
I thank the Minister for that, but does the Minister agree that the subsidy to developers offshore in the southwest of England energy park area embodied in the Ofgem charging regime places real development constraints on the Pentland Firth and Orkney Water scheme, which was announced by the UK Government this summer? And if it's a UK scheme, is there any union dividend in this for Scotland, which is the strongest wave, tidal and wind energy in the north? Minister.
I do agree that the Scottish Islands are at a huge disadvantage. We want to see the renewable potential of the shores of England succeed, as we do in Scotland. But unfortunately, the financial penalty to Scotland's islands are absolutely massive at the moment, and that is why we are determined to see a successful solution. And I very much hope that we will be able to convene this cross-governmental group with the Scottish Government and the UK Government and the islands meeting together to find a solution for this problem, which has remained unresolved for far too long.
Mary Scanlon.
Will the Minister confirm that the potential changes to the charging methodology under Ofgem's transmission charging review are currently being further developed through a CUS committee, and following this work, findings and proposals will be presented to Ofgem in spring next year for them to make a decision on whether to approve or reject any new charging regime? In other words, no final charging figures have yet been agreed as a result of this process, despite all the current speculation.
Minister.
Well, certainly Mary Scanlon is correct that matters currently rest with the CUSC panel. And of course, it's also correct to point out that after that process of expert analysis is concluded, then at the end of the day, the UK Government does have Section 185 powers to put a cap on the amount of charges for the islands or indeed individual island groups. And we have already urged the UK Government to look very seriously indeed at using those powers to ensure that the very place in the UK which has the greatest potential to harness renewable energy is able to do so and is not thwarted and prevented from so doing by an unfair charges regime which has taken far too long to resolve.
Question number 6. Gordon MacDonald.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what assessments are undertaken prior to placing people being monitored under the multi-agency public protection arrangements in unsupervised bed and breakfast accommodation.
Cabinet Secretary Kenny MacAskill.
The location and type of accommodation for offenders is an important part of the environmental risk assessment process. These operational matters are fully discussed by all the agencies involved in the management of offenders and are decided on a case-by-case basis. Guidance for agencies on assessing and managing housing-related risk under MAPA can be found within the Scottish Government's National Accommodation Strategy for Sex Offenders.
Gordon MacDonald.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. The Cabinet Secretary will be aware that there have been calls in the media recently to close a guest house in the Longstone area of my constituency, which was used to accommodate Kevin Rooney, who was convicted of the horrific murder of an elderly local resident. Given that Rooney had 36 previous convictions spanning a decade, had a sexual offences prevention order placed him in 2007 and was on bail at the time of the murder, can the Cabinet Secretary outline the local authorities and other agencies' responsibilities to the safety of the local community when placing such offenders in unsupervised premises?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I think I should first of all put on record our sympathies and feelings for the family of Mrs Sutherland and thank those involved in the ultimate successful prosecution of Mr Rooney. But I do hope that the member will appreciate I cannot go into the specifics of the case or discuss the management of Mr Rooney. These are rightfully matters for the City of Edinburgh Council, Lothian and Borders Police and NHS Lothian, who had a statutory obligation to manage and house Mr Rooney in the community. These responsible authorities have commissioned a significant case review to learn the wider lessons from this tragic case. Mrs Sutherland's family have been informed by the police of this development. It is a matter I'd be more than happy to discuss with the member once the significant case review has been carried out. But until then, I think the appropriate agencies are the Council, the Police and NHS Lothian, and I think we should allow the significant case review to be carried out rather than prejudge any matters.
Question number 7, Kezia Dugdale.
To ask the Scottish Government how its forthcoming bankruptcy bill will support the growth and development of credit unions.
Minister Fergus Ewing.
The Scottish Government acknowledges the challenges being faced by many Scots in relation to their personal finances and recognises the valuable role played by credit unions in the provision of financial services to a wide range of customers. Therefore, we will continue to work with representatives of credit unions to ensure that we are doing all we can to support and to promote them.
Kezia Dugdale.
I thank the Minister for that answer. In a recent PQ answer, the Cabinet Secretary for Finance revealed that the total amount of individual debt held in Scottish Government payment programmes has reached a staggering £170 million. Given this shocking figure, will the Minister embrace the power of credit unions to help people budget and to borrow free from the dangers of legal loan sharks? If so, what will he do to support their growth?
Minister.
Yes, I think we all agree in all parties that credit unions perform an invaluable service in Scotland. There is 113 in Scotland with a total of $250,000 membership throughout. They have £200 million of savings, which £170 million is currently out on loan. They provide a massive role. We all want them to provide a greater role, and we're very keen to work with the UK Government in order to ensure that they can do even more to help those enormous number of people in Scotland who face very, very difficult financial pressures at the current time.
John Wilson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Minister what assurances can be given to credit unions arising from the issues raised during the AIB consultation roadshow, workshops and the recent ABCO Scotland conference, which a number of credit unions raised issues regarding the proposed bill.
Minister.
The credit unions have raised a number of issues with us. The forthcoming bankruptcy bill will look to address many of these, and in the interim, the Accountant in Bankruptcy will continue to engage with credit unions to ensure the best return for all creditors, including credit unions themselves, by balancing the rights and needs of those in debt with the rights and needs of creditors and businesses.
Question number 8, Mark MacDonald.
To ask the Scottish Government what its position is on the UK Government's rejection of the final offer from Remploy Aberdeen.
Minister Fergus Ewing.
Presiding Officer, I share the member's concern and disappointment about this latest UK Government announcement that the Remploy factories in Aberdeen and Edinburgh are to close. It follows, of course, the closure last month of the Remploy factory in Netherton, Wishaw, as Claire Adamson has already referred to. I am deeply concerned at the impact this will have on the employees affected and their families, and we will look to support them in every way possible. Through our PACE initiative, we have been working with the DWP to deliver a package of support tailored to meet the needs of the employees that face redundancy. A disability employment advisor will be appointed to provide support to each individual employee.
Mark MacDonald.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. Would the Minister agree that by inviting Aberdeen Remploy to submit a best and final offer only to then reject it, the UK Government has effectively led them up the garden path and shown a total disregard and lack of understanding for the work being done at the site to develop a social enterprise hub? While I welcome the earlier announcement of a debate on Remploy in future in this chamber and intend to be at the meeting with Esther McVeigh, would the Minister also be happy to meet myself and other interested members to look at how not just the individuals but also the social enterprises involved at that site can be supported in future?
Minister.
Yes, I am happy to meet with Mark MacDonald and other MSPs, and I think it would be sensible to make sure that we have all appropriate opportunities to allow that to happen. I will make sure that that happens for all MSPs, as a great many are concerned about this. Presiding Officer, the decision by the Remploy Board to reject the bid submitted is hugely disappointing, and it does indeed put the future of the staff on that site in doubt. I know that discussions with social enterprises and Aberdeen City Council have taken place about the creation of a social enterprise hub in the city, and hope that work on this will continue. I would, of course, be happy to meet with all relevant parties to take this matter forward.
Lewis MacDonald.
Much welcome that offer of a meeting. And can the Minister confirm whether he has engaged as yet with those discussions involving social enterprises and the local council? And if he is aware of the detail of those discussions, what conclusions has he himself reached?
Minister.
Well, I have engaged extensively with social enterprise bodies. I've had, I think, 4 meetings of the stakeholder group, including the trade union representatives to whom I pay tribute for their dedicated work on behalf of the workforce. As Lewis MacDonald and other members know, the responsibility for this and the power in relation to the sale of these Remploy factories rest with the DWP. At the very outset, I indicated clearly, verbally and in writing to Maria Miller and just this morning to Esther McVeigh that the Scottish Government did not approve, does not support and does not believe that the path on which we have embarked on was correct or fair. But we have responsibilities as the Scottish Government to play the cards as they fall, and we will do everything within our power for the interests of the employees, whether they are in Aberdeen, Netherton, Glasgow, Edinburgh or any other part of Scotland, to make sure that they receive every support that they can.